We are losing a lot of teachers, few teachers to Virginia because it appears that Virginia pays more. But we're also seeing our teachers migrate towards the Raleigh area because our performance data is going up. So they're becoming much more attractive to higher performing districts.
The long delays in the state budget process are hurting teacher retention in rural districts like Halifax County, and it's just one of the many funding challenges these districts are facing. From Hollister to Hobgood, you're listening to the WUNC Politics Podcast. I'm Colin Campbell, Capitol Bureau Chief at WUNC News. School districts across the state are feeling the strain of the legislature's late budget, from stagnant teacher pay to an inability to fund new, innovative programs. And the challenges are most acute in lower-wealth rural counties, where local budgets and property tax revenues aren't big enough to fill the gaps. So for this week's podcast, I hit the road to Halifax County, about 80 miles northeast of Raleigh and seemingly a world away economically. I sat down with the superintendent of Halifax County Schools at the district's headquarters to learn more about how the state budget affects its schools, its teachers, and its ability to afford new school buildings and programs. Dr. Eric Cunningham has served as superintendent of Halifax County Schools for the past 10 years. He previously served as an associate superintendent in neighboring Nash County and worked in school administration in Virginia. Dr. Cunningham, thanks so much for taking the time to speak with me.
Thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk with you today about the Lighthouse District, Halifax County Schools. It's always an honor.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much. And I want to start off with talking about the state budget delays. I'm curious how this has impacted funding and operations in your school district, that we haven't had a state budget in a year or two now.
Well, it keeps us in limbo. See, places like Halifax County who can't supplement their budget without, we're just left in limbo. Where are we now? What allows our current funding? What can we do with our current funding as it exists today? What are the new things that we needed based on our test data and our student performance data? That's where we need that new money so I can align all roads to student achievement. So being out there in limbo just keeps us not understanding what we can do, because I'm a risk taker, but I'm a conservative risk taker if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, you don't want to start a program that's going to cause the financial troubles down the road.
That we cannot sustain. So that means I have to kind of tip my toe in the water instead of just doing a full dive.
Yeah. Are teachers and staff being concerned by the lack of raises this year and not knowing, as they went through this particular school year, whether they were going to get a raise or how much it was going to be? Has that caused some frustrations?
It always does. Teaching is a noble profession, and I need parents to understand the work that's needed to reach our sons and daughters this year. Our teachers have to spend countless hours at home, internalizing their lesson plans, practicing, and then rolling it out. That means they're taking time away from their families. And many of our teachers have to have a second job. So when you look at teachers who have to have a second job and spend time away from their family, there is a need for additional compensation, recognizing that.
You guys are fairly close to the Virginia border. Are you seeing teachers driving up I-95 to Virginia looking for higher salaries? Are you losing great staff to other school districts that have the resources to have higher salaries?
We are losing a lot of teachers, few teachers to Virginia because it appears that Virginia pays more. But we're also seeing our teachers migrate towards the Raleigh area because our performance data is going up. So they're becoming much more attractive to higher performing districts.
Yeah, so you see a school that was on the sort of needs improvement list go up, and that's somebody a larger school district is looking at as like, we've got some schools that need a turnaround. We want to recruit you to come in and be that turnaround agent.
Yeah, let's go to Halifax and let's see who we can cherry pick. And so that's all that is turning to be an issue as well.
I know the different districts have different salary supplements at the local level. Does the budget for your school district allow you to stay competitive, or is that sort of a challenge to make the supplements where they are better or similar to some of the school districts around you that folks might go to?
We try to stay competitive. We do have a local supplement. We even have a local supplement for classified employees, your bus drivers as well. So what we did, we took that local tax dollars and we created supplements for all of our employees. That has helped us, but it has not kept pace with the other districts who can afford more. So we're in the game, but we're still on the bench.
Yeah, so it's hard to keep up because it ends up being kind of an arms race to fill the classroom slots, and as different school districts try to attract the best and brightest.
It becomes an arms race. It becomes a fierce competition in which the weaker person gets picked off.
I want to talk a lot about the school construction situation. Halifax County recently held a grand opening for its first new school building since 2008. Tell me about this project and how you're able to line up funding for this when budgets are tight.
We needed a miracle. That was a Hail Mary, and we're so grateful to the General Assembly and the lottery and all the folks, DPI, who came up with restructuring the needs-based grant to make it attractive to Tier 1 districts like Halifax County. See, the school that we reopened was first built in 1894. That was a Rosenwald school back in the day. And so when they closed that school in 2009, it ripped a hole in the western part of the district, which forced our kids to be on the bus for over an hour every single day, to and from. That's almost 2 hours a day in travel time. And that can put a strain on teaching and learning in our schools. So this school is awesome for us. It's a blessing. It's a dream come true, and we are extremely grateful for what the impact that is going to have in Halifax County.
What was sort of the impediment to getting the state funding that you needed to sort of make this a feasible project? You mentioned sort of restructuring and in how that grant is handled at the state level. How did that help you, or to make the numbers work to get this project off the ground?
The first iteration of that grant required like a 15%, a much larger match. And then, because we're in 3 districts, that meant that I think the other 2 districts within Halifax County would have had to give up their lottery funds. Well, that's not going to happen in a Tier 1 area. So I'm so glad that the decision makers recognize that would prevent places like Halifax receiving the needs-based grant, and so they removed that as a barrier, and made the match 5%.
Oh, so it makes it much more feasible to be able to fund the match at the local level than before, where it would be kind of a budget buster to.
It would be.
So funding from this program is enough available to meet all the construction and facility needs that rural districts like Halifax face, or is there a long list both locally and elsewhere of other schools that could use a similar type of upgrade or some renovations, whatever it may be?
I think the amount of money that we received was more than enough to accomplish the goals that we set forth. Now, that took a lot of intentionality. We planned deliberately, and that's a big shout out to the architect and the general contractor who worked with us day one. So we went into the project with a design build format with understanding. So we had what we call a guaranteed maximum price. So we automatically knew what the price could not be, and we had already reached an agreement with the general contractor as well as the architect. So by knowing the boundaries and what we could spend helped us out tremendously.
Outside of this particular project, do you have other sort of repair and renovation needs for other school facilities that are on your wish list, and how feasible is it to get state funding to help out as you work through that list of what you'd like to do for improving the facilities in this district?
Well, I'm always going to have my hat in my hand. That's just what you do here in Halifax County. So we're now going through the facility needs, 5-year facility needs survey, and so we are now uploading all of the needs in Halifax County. We have tremendous needs in Halifax County. Let me just tell you something. Halifax County is 735 square miles when you include water. It's huge. Now, when you think about something that big with so few people, that means you're driving great distances to get from school to school. Halifax County has, 10 buildings? We have 10 buildings within 700 square miles. So that means I have 10 small, older structures that we have to take care of with our money. Now, when you only look at 2,100, 2,200 kids, obviously, we do the math. You don't need 11 buildings. But you do in Halifax County because of the distance.
Yeah, if you want those kids to be on the school bus first, you've been to like 2 hours a day. Yeah.
So that's almost like a catch-22. So we need to embrace small community schools again, knowing that in places like Halifax, we're going to have smaller schools. But I think that's an advantage to a place like Halifax, so that kids can identify with their school again.
I'm curious the contrast between the new Eastman School building that's going to open this fall and the other 2 campuses that's replacing the older elementary schools that will be closed as a result of this change. What sort of issues do you have with those older buildings that the students are not going to have to deal with now that they move into the brand new facility?
Oh my goodness. The list goes on and on and on. We took 2 buildings that have reached their end of life. We were having foundation issues. We were having water issues. We were having electrical issues. We were having plumbing issues. We were having playgrounds. The playgrounds weren't adequately built to meet the needs of the 21st century learner. So we were having all of those existing structural needs that needed to be addressed, and we just didn't have enough money within our own capital needs funds to address it. So the needs-based grant allowed us to consolidate those 2 buildings into one 21st century building that would become a beautiful crown in Halifax County.
Day to day, you mentioned some of those problems, but what sort of experiences that staff and students have in an older building that somebody who's attending school in a brand new building just doesn't have to think about?
Oh, just think plumbing. You might have stuff come back through. We're not going to have that in a new building. Let's talk about heating and air. And being able to adjust your temperature.
Yeah, because we're sitting here on a 90-degree day out there. I imagine if you've got a school that doesn't have good air conditioning and the kids are in there sweating, the learning process, I assume, is probably not as conducive as it would be other ways.
It's not. You have operational windows now. Whereas now at Eastman, we'll be able to open up windows, whereas at our older schools, we couldn't do that. So when you look at the needs of what our children need, have at that time in a good, solid facility, what about your roof? Your roofs aren't going to leak anymore. So kids won't have to move their desk and put a little bucket down to catch the water. Mm-hmm. Those days are gone with this new building, and I'm very proud and grateful for it.
The new Eastman School is going to, as you mentioned, combine 2 separate elementary schools. I'm curious if this approach helps save money for the district in terms of operations to not have quite as many individual school buildings and all the sort of operational costs that has.
Well, that sure is our theory of action. It should be cheaper to take care of 1 than 2. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll definitely see. We've added solar panels to defray the electrical costs. We've added energy efficient appliances throughout. We have control systems on our lights. So we definitely should see. But as with anything, light bills go up. I can't control that.
I notice this is probably not the only sort of school consolidation like this where you have a facility closing somewhere in the state and people going to one school. Is that sort of the cost savings aspect of that part of the driving force, or is it a decrease in student population? Are there other factors that play into sort of why we're seeing both here and elsewhere schools getting kind of combined into one facility where before there was multiple different campuses?
I think we're seeing a paradigm shift in which we do believe, but in Halifax County, we needed a school in the western part of the district because that was the hole. The 2 schools conveniently will fill that hole in Halifax County. But I also believe in small community schools. I think kids, it's wonderful when kids can walk to their school and be part of their school and things like that. So I would like to see, I think there are some strong advantages to that. But I do think that by replacing 2 frailing, dilapidated buildings with one state-of-the-art building that can last another 60 years is definitely an advantage for Halifax County. Mm-hmm.
Speaking of consolidation, Halifax County is unique in that it has 3 different school districts. Has there been any discussion of consolidating as a cost-saving approach, or is that something that would just sort of be too controversial in the community to have these 3 districts coming together in some capacity?
I'm paid to work in Halifax County. Whatever that's above my pay grade and an issue that is not within my area. I do, of course, when consolidation can always be more efficient, but is it what's best for the student? That's something that would need further study.
I know Halifax County was one of the original counties included in the long-running Leandro lawsuit challenging whether school funding shortages would impact students' constitutional right to a sound basic education. How has the changing legal landscape around this Leandro school funding case impacted your district, if it has at all, in terms of the resources that you could potentially unlock depending on how that case proceeded?
That was tough because you're only as strong. I played basketball, and that's how I got through college. And there's a saying, you're only as strong as your weakest link. Your team is only going to be as strong as your weakest player. And you must spend money on getting that player stronger because you never know when that person will be in the game and you need them to understand how to play. With that being said, you have to look at places like Halifax County and say, how can we strengthen them? Because we add to the betterment of North Carolina. But we also recognize there are needs that are unique to places like Halifax that aren't being experienced in other places. And our children have a right to a sound basic education just like everyone else. But that may require that we do things differently.
Specifically, what do you mean by doing things differently? Just give me a few examples of what needs to happen differently in a Halifax than in a school district that doesn't have some of the same characteristics.
There's not enough time in the instructional day to address the deficits of our children. That means our kids need to stay in school longer and should be allowed to go to school earlier because I need time. We need time with our children. So how do you get more time? You need a different calendar. You need longer days. You need structural changes to help our children learn throughout the day. So those are ways that are needed.
Does the sort of poverty level of the district play into role in terms of whether you need sort of outside the classroom supports for kids who are growing up in perhaps difficult conditions in their families or in their communities?
That would always be awesome, but who would provide them? Who would provide them? What are those agencies and what would they provide us? So I deal with the here and now. So here and now, the school is the anchor for our children. So we need to support the school as much as we can, knowing that, like our mission statement and our vision statement says, we address the needs of the whole child in partnership. And I want to go back to what that means. The whole child. My first year, we had to put washer and dryer machine, commercial washer and dryers, from a generous grant from the Goodwill Foundation. We had to put washer and dryers in our schools so our kids can come and bring their clothes and wash them. I've never had to do that before, but I had to do that here because after the first week of school, you start to see some differences in our children's appearances.
And that can lead to them feeling uncomfortable in the classroom if they're not able to be as well dressed or well groomed as some of their classmates.
Yeah. Would you like to come to school in tattered clothes every day?
Yeah.
Kids can be cruel.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to come to school with your clothes dirty? That can be a problem. So we had to. That's a whole child initiative. So that we didn't have another vehicle to address it. So we had to take it on ourselves.
Given the latest Supreme Court ruling on the Leandro case, had that gone a different way, would Halifax have had the potential to have more state-level funding coming this direction that it may not as a result of the decision that was made by the court?
Yeah, we would have definitely, because we were one of the 5 original plaintiffs. So yes, that would have allowed us to receive additional, state money that we so need. Remember, the majority of my children have been deemed at risk. And we all know that the at-risk conversation began in 1984. And when you're dealing with at-risk children, you have to address the needs of the at-risk children. But we have to do it in partnership with everyone, including the state, including yourself. We have to provide those partnerships which addresses those whole child needs that are needed for our children to learn in the school.
Is your district's funding overall being impacted by the expansion in recent years of the Opportunity Scholarships voucher program, or does that impact the overall availability of funding for this district, or is that more something that plays out at the state level?
Well, we've been tracking charter school funding. We haven't been tracking opportunity funds. That doesn't, because we don't have to pay them. Mm-hmm. It comes through a different source. But I would imagine that there are a lot of kids that would benefit by being in Halifax County that parents are using the Opportunity Scholarship for.
Are you seeing any declines in the student population as a result of that?
Well, I don't know if it's involved to the Opportunity Scholarship, but we are continuing to see a slight decline in our overall ADM.
Mm-hmm. And do charter schools play a role in that too?
Yes.
Or
Charter schools, yes. Charter schools do play a role in our ADM, our average daily membership. And now we're having to deal with the Opportunity Scholarship. So now we have a two-pronged issue.
And does that sort of come back to what we were discussing with kids that don't have as many opportunities? I imagine some families are able to drive their kids to a private school or to a charter school, but I assume a lot of kids in this district they're going where the school bus is taking them, and that's it's not really a choice. That's the school that they're going to be going to.
Yeah, I think our charter schools have done a good job with transportation. They pick them up and they bring them back. I just believe that nobody gonna love your child better than Halifax County schools. We know your children, we know their issues, and we're addressing them.
Mm-hmm. What do you see as some of the inequities that you don't have the resources to address at this time? What sort of programs do you see when you look at other school districts around the state that you'd like to do here but maybe don't have the funding to offer?
Yes, I would like to continue to expand our high school offerings because we're doing our kids are growing. For example, our ROTC program. We're having difficulty recruiting fully certified ROTC instructors to this area, even though we're fully funded. Our kids have a thirst to want to serve in the military, but I need a robust, functional ROTC program to expose them to opportunities in our armed services. We also would like to bring in more elementary Spanish, middle school Spanish because of the diversity of our community. And I think bilingual is definitely a skill that our children can use, to improve their future. I would also like to see more opportunities in the areas of robotics and STEM that kind of ties in all of the learning in a competitive format. I want our kids to understand competition and that America is based on competition and that they can compete and stand up against anyone and show that they too have received that sound basic education. So I would like to see more opportunities where our children can compete. I would also like to see more opportunities where our children can be supported because of the diverse needs that they have. When you look at our emblem, you'll see a lighthouse, but you also see the waves. The waves are the environmental factors that we cannot control, but we have to deal with. And as you can see in our emblem, those waves are big. That means the life challenges for our children are big. And we're recognizing it and we're owning it, but we're saying we can address them in partnership with everyone else.
You mentioned some of the challenges in recruiting for particular types of staff like ROTC. Generally speaking, really as we get ready in the next couple of months for the new school year, are you able to fill the positions you need to fill to fully staff the schools at the level that you'd like to, or are there some recruiting challenges that you face going into a new school year?
There are some recruiting challenges. Whenever you come to the Northeast, you're going to have to deal with recruiting challenges. That's why we had to go international, to recruit, train, and retain a high-quality staff. So when we look at those program enhancements, like in band, our kids love music. So I wish I could hire a highly qualified band teachers at all 4 of my schools, so our kids can really enjoy the music because they're enjoying music. So I just wish I can still give them the best possible teacher within the funds that I have.
You mentioned the international teachers. How does that work in terms of bringing in teachers from overseas and filling some of those gaps that you have in your staffing?
It's quite complex. We've been doing it for quite some time since COVID. So what basically we work with an international staffing company. We interview, then we have to go through the Department of State, complete all that paperwork, and then in about 6 or 7 months they end up coming once they meet all of the requirements.
Is it a challenge to sort of train folks up in sort of the standards and curriculum of an American school district? Or?
It is, but they do come with the core competencies that I need. So they do come with an understanding of the subject area. We then now have to transfer that knowledge that they have in that core subject area to managing children from Halifax County. That's different from where they're from. That's where the cultural issues come into play. And so we do have to educate them, work with them, and teach them, that this is how you work with children from Halifax County.
Yeah, so it's a different ballgame than when you hire somebody who's born and raised here and knows the community and wants to come home and teach.
Yeah, because they're familiar with the environment.
Do you have any sort of hurdles you have to overcome in terms of immigration with some of the changing landscape around federal immigration policy to get these positions filled and to get international folks when you need them?
Yeah, there are always some hurdles that come our way. There are always some hurdles that come our way. We're committed to trying to deal with them, but there are always some hurdles.
Despite all the headwinds that we've discussed, I want to sort of end with the note of progress. What progress have you seen in the years that you've been leading Halifax County schools and sort of success stories that have come from this district over recent years?
How much time do you have? Because I can go on and on.
Yeah.
I am so proud of our students, particularly this year. Our kids hit it out the park. Now, I'm only benchmarking, as you can tell in my voice, because when we talk about the children, I get excited. We benchmark ourselves against ourselves. So I'm not comparing ourselves to anyone else. But what I'm seeing this year with our children and compared to last year, oh my goodness. I can honestly say that our children have a thirst for education and knowledge in Halifax County. And it's showing up in the data. It's showing up in their aspirations. It's showing up in their discipline. It's showing up in their work ethic. It's just showing up time at every site. I'm starting to see it. I call it pockets of academic excellence. Well, let's scratch that. Pockets of educational excellence. And we're beginning to see it at all 11 sites. And we have a saying in Halifax, and I'm sure you know what that saying is: a rising tide lifts all boats.
So what do you attribute that to in terms of what makes the difference between a year where you've improved over last year's data versus a year where you're either falling behind or you're treading water in terms of how successful the student body is?
We've always grown incrementally. And when you look at increments, you're looking at just steps, just small steps, 1 or 2 points a year, 1 or 2 points a year, 1 or 2 points a year, then we'll jump up maybe 4 or 5. Well, this year during we call it the blessed bump, we may have increased that 4 or 5 benchmark this year, and I attribute it to alignment. One of the things that we really worked hard this year in Halifax County was the elimination of random acts. What's a random act? Not following the standards, not teaching our core curriculum, not keeping up with our pacing guide. Those things that we know are essential. A larger number of teachers have followed them. Now, we also have principals that we poured a lot of resources in instructional coaching and having a common playbook. And what we're seeing this year is that when they follow our instructional model, our instructional playbook, kids excel. They're meeting or exceeding growth. But you have to first meet first, now exceed. So we're starting to see a greater number of children meet growth, which leads to exceeding growth. Now, in Halifax County, we have a lot of kids with severe deficits, which means they're wider than 1 year. So that means we have to exceed growth in order to close that deficit by the time they're graduating. And I think we're well on our track.
Yeah, looking ahead, any sort of big initiatives that you have coming in the coming years that are worth noting for your efforts sort of continue that trend in a positive direction?
I don't know. I probably have about 400 kids in school for summer. That's almost 30% of our kids are going to be in school in July and June, and then we're going to have summer camps in July, and then we reopen again in August. So as you can see, we don't take breaks. So we're constantly keeping our kids engaged. But we're also giving them other opportunities in Halifax County, like a band camp during the summer, and other academic camps, which puts a strain on our staff. But I'm so proud that they're willing to step up and take time out of their summer schedule to continue to work with our children in an effort to prevent summer learning loss.
A lot of interesting stuff going on here in Halifax County Schools. Eric Cunningham is the superintendent here of Halifax County Schools. Thanks so much for speaking with me.
You're welcome. Come on back. And if you're not doing anything, come on back in June 30th for the I Matter rally, which will be at William R. Davie. Come out and see the work for yourself. and see what our children are doing for yourself. Come on out, I invite you. Come on.
We'd love to. Thank you.
All right.
And that's it for this week's episode. If you have any feedback on the podcast or ideas for future topics, feel free to reach out to me. I'm on Blue Sky and X at Raleigh Reporter, or you can contact me through our website, WUNC.org. I'm Colin Campbell. Thanks for listening.
Each story you hear on Planet Money starts with a question. What happens if we refund tariffs? Why are groceries so expensive? At NPR, we stand for your right to be curious, because the forces shaping our world can be hard to see. Follow NPR's Planet Money wherever you get your podcasts and start seeing how the economy really works.